I never imagined my life would unfold like this, standing alone in the dim hallway of our Portland apartment, feeling the quiet strain of my own choices press against me like the weight of unshed rain. I'm 39 now, a woman who spent the last 20 years devoted to a life that feels more distant with every passing day. During the week, I work at a holistic wellness center, an Asian-inspired spot tucked between cafes and boutiques. I didn't end up there by accident. I've always been drawn to the slow, graceful traditions of bodywork, to the subtle power of pressure points and mindful breath. It's more than a profession to me. It's a form of healing, both for others and, in small ways, for myself. But my husband doesn't understand any of that. To him, it's just another service job. He sees my work as beneath him, says little, but says everything in the way his gaze schemes past me or how he speaks when he bothers to speak at all. We've spent years together, but the spark that once tethered us has dimmed to little more than smoke. Our conversations are mechanical. We sleep beside one another, but exist on opposite sides of a wall built from silence. I feel diminished, invisible. The only person who sees through all of it is my son, Logan. He's 18 now, standing at the threshold between adolescence and adulthood, yet he still carries the quiet attentiveness of the boy I raised. He notices when I'm worn out. He checks in on me. He pays attention to details others overlook, like the tension I carry in my shoulders after a full day of kneading stress out of strangers while swallowing my own. Tonight, that exhaustion wraps around me like a heavy coat. My husband is tucked away in his home office, likely glued to some video, his expression glazed and vacant. I shuffle into the kitchen, shoulders aching, ready to prepare tea and unwind, only to find Logan already there, water boiling and 2 mugs on the counter. "You're late," he says, not accusing, just observing. His voice is calm, warm, a soft contrast to the cold indifference that echoes through this apartment. I sink into a chair with a weary nod as he slides one of the mugs toward me. It was a packed day. He studies me with a quiet intensity, his gaze softening. "You look like you've been running on fumes." I offer a small smile and cradle the mug in my palms, letting the steam curl up into the space between us. Feels like it. For a while we sit without speaking, the silence not uncomfortable but full, like there's something there neither of us wants to disturb. It's always been like this, growing slowly over the past year, an unspoken closeness, the kind that lives in the quiet moments when no one else is looking. Logan is different from other boys his age. He's perceptive, steady, and more than that, he cares. He's the one who leaves out dinner when I work late, who gently presses his fingers into the tight spots between my shoulders when he sees me wince, who asks, not just how my day was, but how I am. And I see him too. He's growing into himself, taller now, with that ease of movement that comes with confidence. He speaks with purpose. His gaze doesn't dart away when it meets mine. It holds steady, thoughtful. Logan notices the things that matter, and in return, I've begun to notice things about him too. Subtle shifts, a quiet strength. He sees me, not just as the tired woman who walks through the door every evening, but as someone who still wants to feel alive. It was a Thursday night. The sky outside was thick with unfallen rain, the kind that carries a chill before it even touches the ground. The wellness center was calm, lights low, scented oils lingering in the air like memory. I had one last appointment on the schedule, and I was counting down the minutes, dreaming of a long soak in the tub in soft pajamas. I stretched my fingers, sore from the day's work, when the front door chimed. I turned, expecting a stranger, but it was Logan. He stood there in the entryway, framed by the soft glow of amber lighting, a dark jacket over a gray tee, hair tousled from the wind. His face was unreadable, his presence both comforting and startling. "Logan!" My voice betrayed my surprise. "Why are you here?" He held up his phone with a sly grin. "Had an appointment." I blinked, confused. "Wait, what?" "I booked under a different name," he said, his tone casual but layered with something else I couldn't quite name. I swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how the walls seemed to press in closer. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged, taking a few more steps into the softly lit room, his presence both calming and impossibly present. "I wanted to understand what it's like, what you really do." "You already know what I do, Logan." "Not like this," he replied quietly, watching me the way he does when he's searching for something beneath the surface. "Not through someone else's eyes." His words caught me off guard, stirring something I didn't want to name. I drew in a breath, steadying myself. "This is a professional space," I reminded him, gently but firmly. He nodded, expression unwavering. "That's why I made an official appointment." It wasn't defiance. It was a kind of quiet insistence, a push, not to disobey, but to be understood. He was always like this when he was trying to cross a line not out of disrespect, but out of care. My eyes flicked to the tablet beside the desk, still displaying the name he had used. A different name, but his time slot. He hadn't broken the rules. He'd done everything by the book. Technically, I had no reason to refuse. Exhaling slowly, I nodded toward the table. "Go ahead. Lie down." Without a word, he slipped off his jacket, then pulled his shirt over his head. My breath caught for a second. Not because I hadn't seen him like that before, we lived in the same house, but because it felt out of place now, under these lights, in this room that was part of my other world. He stretched out on the table, resting his head on his folded arms, eyes trailing me as I moved to the counter and reached for the massage oil. I told myself to focus, to treat him like anyone else. But as my hands met his back, as I felt the warmth of his skin under my fingers, the energy shifted. The air turned heavier, charged. "Just breathe," I said gently, my voice softer than I intended. He released a slow breath, his body melting into the table beneath my hands. I moved through the motions, steady, practiced strokes, but nothing about the moment felt routine. I was aware of everything. His breathing, the way his muscles responded, the way his silence filled the room like a steady pulse. There was no tension in his words, no suggestion of anything beyond the obvious, and yet the closeness carried something unspoken, something real. I didn't know how long we stayed in that rhythm before I finally let my hands rest at his shoulders a moment too long, then stepped back, wiping the oil from my palms. He didn't move immediately. Then he turned his head slightly, eyes meeting mine. "That was something else," he said, his voice even. I nodded, my throat dry. "I'm glad." He pushed himself up slowly, sitting upright but not reaching for his shirt right away. His gaze stayed fixed on me. "I think I understand now," he said. My brow furrowed. Understand what? There was a quiet smile on his lips. Not playful, not teasing, just soft, knowing. What it means when someone really sees you. The air seemed to still around us. His words landed in a way that made something flutter beneath my ribs. A part of me wanted to brush it off, laugh, move on, but I couldn't. "And how do they see me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't answer right away. When he did, his tone was gentler than I'd ever heard it. "Like you matter." The silence that followed was deafening. "Like you matter. Like you're more than someone who comes home aching and unseen. Like you're more than the woman who walks through the world, quietly hoping someone might notice she's still here." I turned away, my fingers reaching for a towel, trying to center myself in routine. "I need to clean up." He nodded but didn't move right away. As I reached for the counter, I felt his fingers graze over mine. Brief, barely a second, but unmistakable. "I'll wait," he said quietly. Then he stood, pulled his shirt over his head, and walked to the doorway with that same quiet certainty that always caught me off guard. My heart thudded as I watched him leave the room. Something had shifted. I stayed in the soft glow of the room long after he was gone, my fingers trembling slightly as I folded towels and cleared the space, the faint scent of oil still lingering in the air. I should have focused on the next task, the next hour, but I couldn't stop hearing his voice. Like you matter. I closed my eyes and let the words linger in my mind longer than I should have, because it had been a long time since anyone had said something like that to me. A long time since I believed it. The sound of the latch catching pulled me back to the moment. I turned around, expecting one of the other therapists or maybe the manager locking up. But it was him. Logan stood leaning in the doorway, his jacket half-zipped, hands in his pockets. His expression gave nothing away, but something behind his eyes steadied me and unraveled me all at once. "Come on," he said. I blinked. "Come where?" "We're not going home," he said, pushing off the wall. "Not yet." I hesitated. "Jake, it's late." "I know." His voice was calm but firm. "But you need to rest." I let out a soft, tired laugh. "I'll rest when I get home." He shook his head. "No, you won't." I frowned. "Jake!" He took a step closer, and for some reason I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "You'll go home, and he'll barely look at you. You'll clean up, maybe sit in the living room for a while, and then you'll go to bed feeling just as tired as you did when you left here." His voice was steady, quiet, but there was something behind it, something fierce, something unyielding. "That's not rest, Mom. That's just surviving." My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't wrong. He wasn't wrong, and the fact that he saw it so clearly, felt it so deeply, made my heart ache in a way I wasn't prepared for. I swallowed. "Jake, your father will be worried." "No, he won't." His words were sharp, final. "You and I both know he won't even notice how late you are." I looked away, my fingers tightening around the strap of my purse. "Don't think about him," Jake said, his voice softer now. "He doesn't deserve you." I froze. "He doesn't deserve you." The words settled between us, heavy and unspoken, the truth of them lingering in the air like something neither of us could take back. I looked up at him then, really looked at him. He wasn't the boy I had raised anymore. He was a man who saw me in ways no one else did, who paid attention to the way my shoulders slumped when I came home, the way my laughter had become rare and fleeting, the way I had learned to live in the shadows of my own life. "Please," he said, quieter now. "Just tonight." I should have said no. I should have done the responsible thing, the expected thing. But I didn't. I nodded, and Jake smiled. I didn't ask where we were going. I didn't need to. Jake drove with an ease that made it clear he had planned this, that he had thought about it long before he had stepped into my salon tonight. The streets blurred past in streaks of gold and silver, the hum of the city alive but distant. I leaned back against the seat, my body finally giving in to the exhaustion I had been holding at bay all day. I didn't realize I had closed my eyes until I felt the car slow to a stop. I blinked, looking out the window, my breath catching slightly. A hotel. Not a grand, expensive one, but something quiet, peaceful. A place tucked away from the world, where the lights were warm, and the night felt softer somehow. I turned to Jake, my brows furrowing. "Jake! Just trust me," he said. And I did. I don't know why, but I did. The check-in was quick, smooth, and before I knew it, I was stepping into a room that smelled of fresh linens and quiet serenity. The space was simple but beautiful. Soft lighting, a large bed, a couch by the window overlooking the city. Jake set my bag down near the door, then turned to me. "You should take a bath." I let out a breathy laugh. "Are you ordering me to?" "Yeah," he said, smiling. "I am." I shook my head, but I couldn't help the small, genuine smile that tugged at my lips. A bath did sound nice. So I went into the bathroom, turning on the water, watching as steam curled into the air. And for the first time in what felt like years, I let myself breathe. I sank into the warm water, closing my eyes, feeling the tension slip from my muscles, the exhaustion melting into something softer, something lighter. I didn't know how long I stayed there, but when I finally emerged, wrapped in a robe, my hair damp and loose, Jake was sitting by the window, looking out at the city. He turned when he heard me, his gaze sweeping over me for a moment before he smiled. "Feel better?" I nodded. "Yeah, good." I hesitated for a moment before walking over to where he sat. He didn't move as I lowered myself onto the couch beside him, our shoulders almost touching. We sat in silence for a while, the city stretching out beneath us, the hum of life moving on without us. And for once, I didn't feel guilty for pausing. I glanced at Jake, watching as the soft glow of the city lights played across his face. "You didn't have to do this," I murmured. He turned to me then, his expression unreadable. "Yes, I did." Something about the certainty in his voice made my breath hitch. Because I believed him. And for the first time in years, I felt like someone had chosen me. The night stretched on, filled with quiet conversations, shared glances, and something unspoken lingering in the space between us. Jake had always been my son, but tonight he felt like something more. Not in a way that was wrong, but in a way that made me realize he was the only person in this world who had ever truly seen me. And maybe, just maybe, I had been waiting to be seen all along. The soft hum of the city outside felt distant as I sat on the couch, my robe pulled snug around me, my damp hair clinging to my skin. The hotel room was quiet except for the occasional shifting of fabric as Jake adjusted his posture beside me, his broad shoulders relaxed but his eyes sharp, watchful. The moments stretched between us, delicate and unspoken, like a thin thread that neither of us dared to pull too hard for fear of unraveling something we couldn't put back together. I should have been thinking about my husband, about how I would explain coming home late, about how he would barely notice either way. But I wasn't. I was thinking about Jake, about the way he had looked at me in the salon, about the way he had told me I was worth something, about how, for the first time in a long time, I felt like someone had seen me, not just as a wife, not just as a mother, but as me. And then his voice, low and careful, broke the silence. "I was thinking." I turned to him, waiting. His eyes flickered to mine, his lips pressed together like he was debating something. "I want to give you a massage." I blinked. "What?" "The same one you gave me," he clarified, his voice steady, but I could see the hint of hesitation in his expression. "I know how much you love what you do, and I see how tired you are, how much you give to everyone else." He paused, his gaze steady. "But no one ever gives back to you. Except me." I felt my stomach twist. Because he was right. Because he was the only one. I looked down at my hands, at the way my fingers trembled slightly against my lap, at the ghost of his touch still lingering in my mind from earlier in the salon. "You don't have to do that," I murmured. "I know." I swallowed. "Why are you interested in this all of a sudden?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because you are." My breath caught. Of course. Jake had always been like this, attentive in a way that sometimes scared me. He remembered things no one else did, noticed the small details that I had long stopped expecting anyone to see. He saw me. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "Jake! I just want to take care of you," he said softly. "Like you take care of everyone else." My heart twisted, the weight of his words settling into my chest. When was the last time someone had said something like that to me? When was the last time I had let myself be taken care of? I hesitated for a long moment, my pulse thrumming beneath my skin, my mind racing with thoughts I didn't know how to process. And then I nodded. Jake stood without a word, moving toward the neatly made bed. He pulled back the blanket, adjusting the pillows with practiced ease, his movements deliberate, confident. "Lie down," he said gently. I hesitated, standing slowly, my robe shifting around me as I moved toward the bed. I sat at the edge for a moment, my fingers pressing into the soft fabric of the mattress, my breath unsteady. Then, with a quiet exhale, I lay down on my stomach, turning my head to the side, my cheek pressed against the pillow. The bed dipped slightly as Jake kneeled beside me, his presence warm, steady. "Just relax," he murmured. Easier said than done. I heard the quiet rustling of fabric, the faint sound of a bottle being opened, and then his hands, warm, careful, pressing gently against my shoulders. I tensed instinctively, my breath hitching, but Jake was patient, his movements slow, deliberate. "You always talk about everyone else," he said quietly, "but no one ever talks about you." My stomach twisted. He was right. I spent my days listening to people, tending to them, easing their aches and pains, offering comfort where I could. I listened to my husband's complaints about work. I listened to coworkers vent about their lives. I listened to clients tell me their stories as I worked the tension from their bodies. But no one ever asked about me, except Jake, his thumbs pressed into a knot just below my shoulder blade, working the tension loose, and I exhaled shakily, my eyes fluttering shut. "Does that feel good?" he asked, his voice lower now, softer. I swallowed, nodding against the pillow. He continued, his hands moving lower, his palms pressing into my back with the same patience and care that I had used on him earlier. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself melt into someone else's touch. Jake took his time, his fingers tracing slow, careful lines along my spine, easing the weight I had carried for so long. The weight of my marriage, the weight of loneliness, the weight of never feeling like I belonged to myself anymore. And in the quiet safety of that hotel room, with the city lights casting shadows against the walls, I felt something shift inside me. Something I couldn't name. Something I wasn't sure I wanted to name. Because this was Jake, and he was the only one who had ever made me feel this way. I didn't know how much time passed. I only knew the warmth of his hands, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the way the tension in my body slowly faded beneath his touch. When he finally stopped, I felt strangely lighter, as if he had pulled something from me that I hadn't even realized I was holding on to. He pulled the blanket over me gently, like I was something fragile, something breakable. And then he whispered, "You deserve more than the life you've been given." I felt my throat tighten, my fingers curling into the sheets. I didn't answer. I couldn't, because he was right, and that terrified me. I don't know how long I lay there, wrapped in warmth, my mind a quiet storm of emotions I couldn't untangle. I heard Jake move away from the bed, heard the soft rustle of fabric as he sat back down in the chair by the window. But I didn't open my eyes, because I knew if I did, if I looked at him now, I wouldn't be able to pretend anymore, that nothing had changed, that I hadn't crossed a line in my heart I could never uncross, that the only person in this world who truly saw me was the one person I wasn't supposed to see back. Jake had always been attentive, always looking out for me in ways I had long stopped expecting from anyone. But tonight, something had changed. The way he had taken care of me, the way he had insisted I deserved rest, the way his hands had moved over my skin with such quiet reverence. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know what to do with him. I exhaled slowly, shifting beneath the blanket he had draped over me, my body sinking deeper into the soft mattress. And then I heard him move, the rustling of fabric, the quiet creak of a chair by the window. And then his voice, low, steady, "Close. Good night, Mom." I swallowed, my throat tight, my heart knocking against my ribs. And then, before I could respond, before I could think, before I could stop him, his lips pressed against my cheek. Soft, warm, gentle. I felt my breath hitch, my fingers curling into the sheets, my body frozen beneath the weight of that single, delicate moment. He pulled away slowly, his breath lingering for just a second longer than it should have, and when I finally opened my eyes, he was already moving toward the door. I turned my head, watching as he reached for the light switch, his movements calm, unhurried. He didn't look back, didn't say anything else. He just flicked off the light, and then the door closed softly behind him, leaving me alone, leaving me in the dark, leaving me with nothing but the memory of his touch and the unbearable, undeniable truth that something between us had shifted, irrevocably,